Commander Kael'thas's emergency console lit up with impossible readings, and 3 of his subordinates were screaming contradictory reports simultaneously. Sir, the human cadet is building structures on the frozen river. Commander, she's been exposed for 2 hours and 17 minutes. Sir, the ice bridges are glowing. Stop. Kael'thas held up one clawed hand, his translator struggling with the overlapping voices. Repeat that, slowly. The human is doing what? Cadet Instructor Vexia appeared on his main screen, her crystalline features fractured with stress. Catherine Baker entered the frozen river trial zone at dawn cycle. Standard protocol. We expected to recover remains within 5 minutes, as with all previous attempts. And Kael'thas felt his chest tighten. 47 cadets had died in the frozen river over 3 centuries. It was the Academy's final trial, the one that separated those truly worthy of serving in the Galactic Defense Force from those who merely thought themselves capable. The river itself was a naturally occurring phenomenon, a flow of exotic matter that existed at temperatures so extreme it dissolved molecular bonds on contact. Nothing survived it. Nothing crossed it. Commander, she's building bridges, out of the river ice itself, and she's been singing for the last 40 minutes. Kael'thas stared at the screen. She's what? Singing, sir. Human musical vocalizations. We've identified the song as something called Don't Stop Believin' from their pre-space era. And Commander? Vexia's voice cracked. The bridges are holding her weight. She's carried 17 pieces of equipment across already. She's constructing what appears to be a permanent spanning structure across the proving ground of the worthy dead. That's impossible. The frozen river destroys matter. It doesn't... You can't build with it. Kael'thas pulled up the live feed from the trial site. His blood went cold. There she was. Catherine Baker, human cadet. 23 cycles old, according to her file, engineering track. She stood on a bridge made of glowing blue-white ice that shouldn't exist, wearing standard trial gear that should have disintegrated an hour ago, using some kind of heat tool on the ice that should have caused a catastrophic chain reaction. Instead, the ice was growing, forming elegant arches and support structures. She waved at a camera drone. Hello. Almost done with the support structure. This is really cool stuff, no pun intended. Well, okay, pun totally intended. Kael'thas watched her laugh at her own joke while standing on material that had killed more promising warriors than the last 3 galactic wars combined. Get me Dean Zelax, now. And somebody explained to me how a human is not only surviving the frozen river, but building on it. The next 10 minutes were chaos. Dean Zelax arrived in the command center looking like he'd aged 5 cycles in 5 minutes. Emergency retrieval drones were dispatched, all 7 disintegrated within seconds of river contact. A rescue team of volunteer instructors in heavy shielding made it 3 meters before their equipment began failing and they had to retreat. And Catherine Baker just kept building. She's insulating the bridge spans with more river ice, reported sensor technician Jotaro, his mandibles clicking with agitation. Commander, she's layering the material, creating what appears to be a composite structure, and the temperature readings they're contradictory. Explain contradictory, Zelax demanded. The surface reads at -400 Kelvin, standard frozen river temperature. But there's thermal activity within the structure. Heat signatures consistent with industrial fusion reactions. But localized, controlled. The ice isn't melting, it's... Jotaro's voice failed him. It's getting structurally stronger as it heats up internally. That violates thermodynamics, Kael'thas said flatly. Yes, sir, by several orders of magnitude. On screen, Catherine had stopped singing and was now talking to herself while working. The audio feed caught fragments. Okay, so if I create a resonance chamber here, yeah, that's the sweet spot. Just need to convince the molecular bonds to... There we go, looking good. She's talking to the ice, Vexia whispered, as if it can hear her. Dean Zillax's comm unit chimed with priority override codes, the kind reserved for planetary emergencies. This is Fleet Admiral R. Hill of Galactic Academy Command. We've been monitoring your situation. Dean Zillax, I need to know if we're looking at equipment malfunction or if that human is actually doing what my sensors claim she's doing. Zillax pulled up a direct feed, high-resolution, multiple spectrum analysis. Admiral, Yes, she is. There was a long silence. She's building fire on the ice bridge. Yes, Admiral. Fire on a structure made of frozen river ice, the substance that exists at 400 Kelvin below zero. Yes, Admiral. The ice isn't sublimating, phase shifting, or experiencing catastrophic structural failure. No, Admiral. According to our readings, the fire is burning at temperatures exceeding military-grade engine output, and the ice is humming. It's what? Jotaro enlarged the spectral analysis. Humming, Admiral, resonating at a frequency that matches human vocal range, specifically at a frequency matching the human's earlier singing. Catherine had created a flame. Calling it a fire seemed inadequate. That towered 3 meters high on top of her ice bridge. The flames were white-hot, the kind of heat that should have vaporized everything within 50 meters. Instead, the ice bridge beneath glowed with internal light, its structure visibly strengthening, new crystalline formations growing like living architecture. She was roasting something over the fire. It looked like ration bars. Is she cooking? Admiral R. Hill's voice had climbed an octave. Yes, Admiral. She appears to be preparing a meal. On a bridge of deadly exotic matter, while generating fusion-level heat, in the middle of the Academy's most lethal trial. The Admiral paused. I'm convening an emergency session of the Scientific Council, and the Xenobiology Committee, and probably the Philosophical Institute, because I think we need to reconsider what we know about physical law. Catherine finished whatever she was cooking, took a bite and gave the camera a thumbs up. Trial objective acquired. The rescue beacon is on the far side. I'll grab it on my way back. This bridge should be stable enough for regular traffic now. You guys might want to update your maps. She started walking deeper into the frozen river, humming cheerfully. She's going further in, Vexia said, her voice climbing toward panic. Into the deep zone, where the exotic matter is most concentrated, where the temperature drops to... We know, Kailthas interrupted. We all know. They watched in collective horror as Catherine Baker disappeared into the white mist of the frozen river's heart, where no sensors could penetrate, where matter itself struggled to maintain coherence. Sir, Jotaro said quietly. She's been gone for 6 minutes. The deep zone has never permitted survival beyond 90 seconds. I'm aware. Should we prepare recovery protocols for... She's going to come back, Kailthas said, surprising himself with his certainty. I don't know how I know that, but she's going to walk out of there carrying that beacon and probably making another joke about it. Dean Zillax looked at him. That's not logical, Commander. Nothing about the last 3 hours has been logical, Dean. We're past logic. We're in the realm of whatever reality humans operate in, which apparently has different rules than ours. 12 minutes later, Catherine emerged from the mist carrying the rescue beacon, a 40-kilogram device designed to test strength and determination, under one arm like a satchel. She was also carrying what appeared to be samples of frozen river ice in her other hand. Got it. Also, this stuff is amazing. Do you know what the molecular structure is doing? It's like it's trying to exist in 3 states simultaneously. I took some samples for the lab. Figured the materials science department would love to study. Oh, hey, is that a rescue team? I'm fine, guys. No rescue needed. The volunteer rescue team, who had been suiting up for a recovery attempt, froze mid-preparation. Catherine walked back across her bridge, which now had handrails, Kailthas noticed with the part of his brain that had given up trying to understand, and reached the safe zone. She set down the beacon and held up her ice samples triumphantly. So, do I pass? 3 astrophysicists arrived within the hour. Dr. Kovacs, Professor Lear-Anna, and Research Director Zoranix represented the finest scientific minds in the Academy. They brought enough scanning equipment to analyze a small moon. Catherine let them onto her bridge. Careful, it's a little slippery near the 3rd support arch, she called out helpfully. I haven't textured that section yet. Professor Lear-Anna's scanner shrieked protest. The readings are, I can't. She looked at Catherine. Young cadet, how did you build this? Oh, well, it's all about understanding substrate thermal dynamics and molecular excitation states. Catherine gestured enthusiastically at her bridge. See, the frozen river ice isn't actually hostile. It's just existing in an extremely stressed state. All that exotic matter is basically screaming for stability. So if you introduce controlled thermal gradients in a specific pattern, you can give it something to do. Like being a bridge. The molecules actually want to organize if you ask them nicely. Ask them. Nicely. Dr. Kovacs repeated slowly. Yeah, I mean, it's more complex than that. You have to establish harmonic resonance frequencies that match the material's natural crystalline preferences, and then use directional heat application to guide the formation patterns. But the basic principle is just listening to what the material wants to be and helping it get there. Research Director Zoranix was scanning the bridge structure with every instrument at his disposal. The thermal readings indicate you've created a stable gradient loop. Heat flows through the structure but never escapes. It's perpetually recycled through the molecular matrix. This is, I don't have words, this is applied thermodynamics at a quantum level. Right, exactly. Catherine beamed. I figured if the exotic matter exists in a quantum superposition state, then traditional thermodynamics wouldn't apply. So I just treated the heat as a communication medium instead of an energy source. The ice responds to thermal harmonics the way some materials respond to electromagnetic fields. But nothing can respond that way to heat, Professor Lear-Anna said weakly. Heat is random molecular motion. It can't carry information at this precision. I mean, it shouldn't be able to, Catherine agreed. But it does? I think maybe human understanding of heat is just different. We evolved on a planet with wild temperature variations. Fire was our first technology. Maybe we just think about heat differently than most species? She pulled out a thermos. When had she had time to bring a thermos? And poured hot chocolate into cups she'd apparently made from frozen river ice. The cups didn't melt. The chocolate steamed cheerfully. Want some? I made extra. All 3 scientists accepted cups with trembling appendages. They sipped simultaneously. The hot chocolate was perfect. This shouldn't exist, Dr. Kovacs whispered. The cups, the stable liquid, the controlled temperature. Every aspect of this violates fundamental principles. Does it, though? Catherine asked. Or does it just violate the principles as you've understood them? Because from where I'm standing, literally standing on proof, Maybe the principles are more flexible than your species realized. She walked them through the entire bridge, explaining her process. How she'd tested the ice's resonance frequency. How she'd created the first microbridge as proof of concept. How she'd scaled up by maintaining the harmonic ratios. How the fire wasn't burning fuel in the traditional sense. It was a sustained thermal harmonization loop that pulled energy from the quantum instability of the exotic matter itself. You created a perpetual motion machine. Professor Lirana said faintly, out of the universe's most dangerous material, while taking your academy final exam. Is it perpetual motion, though? I mean, it's drawing from the exotic matter's quantum state energy that'll run out eventually, probably in like 10,000 years? I didn't do the exact math. Research Director Zoranex sat down on the bridge, the deadly, impossible bridge, and put his head in his hands. 10,000 years. She estimates 10,000 years of sustained operation. From a bridge she built this morning, using ice that kills on contact. To be fair, Catherine said, I did almost mess up the third arch. Had to redo the thermal gradient twice. That was tricky. Back in the command center, Dean Zillax was in emergency communication with Galactic Academy Command, which had convened an unprecedented joint session of the Scientific Council, Xenobiology Committee, and Advanced Physics Institute. The implications, Council Leader Azila was saying, extend far beyond a single trial. If humans can manipulate matter at a molecular level through applied thermodynamics, through what this cadet calls asking nicely, then their capabilities exceed anything we've documented. She negotiated with physics, Admiral R. Hill said, still sounding stunned. She treated quantum states as a conversation partner rather than immutable law. And succeeded, Azila confirmed. We're looking at multiple paradigm shifts. Material science, thermodynamics, quantum mechanics, all of it needs revision to account for human perceptual frameworks. Kael'thas spoke up. With respect, Council Leader, I think the immediate concern is, what do we do with Catherine Baker? She's completed the trial. More than completed it, she's fundamentally altered the proving ground. There's a bridge now, Vexia added. A permanent, stable bridge across the frozen river. The trial that defined the impossible for 3 centuries has been solved by a human on her first attempt, while singing. The council chamber fell silent. We need new trials, Azila said finally. Not harder trials, different trials. Trials designed for species that don't accept physical limitations as absolute. Trials that account for their bizarre cognitive approach to problem solving. How do you even design a trial for someone who can convince exotic matter to cooperate? Admiral R. Hill asked. Carefully, Dean Zillax said. Very, very carefully. Catherine emerged from her debriefing session 3 hours later, looking confused but cheerful. Commander Kael'thas intercepted her in the corridor. Cadet Baker, a moment of your time. Oh, sure, Commander. Am I in trouble? I followed all the safety protocols. Well, all the ones that applied. Some of them seem designed for species that don't handle cold well, so I adapted. You're not in trouble. Kael'thas struggled for words. I need to understand. When you looked at the frozen river, the trial that has killed 47 cadets over 3 centuries, what did you see? Catherine considered this seriously. I saw stressed exotic matter existing in an uncomfortable quantum state. Like, imagine being frozen in place, but also moving at high speed, all at once, forever. That sounds awful, right? The ice wasn't hostile. It was desperate for stability. So I just gave it a job to do. Something purposeful. Being a bridge is dignified work for matter. Better than just being scary ice that kills people. You felt sorry for it. Well, yeah. It's been suffering here for who knows how long. Now it's useful, structural, part of something bigger. The ice is happier this way. You can tell by the harmonic resonance patterns. They're way more stable now. Kael'thas realized he was staring. You anthropomorphized exotic matter. I empathized with it. Catherine corrected gently. There's a difference. Anthropomorphizing would be assuming it thinks like me. Empathizing is recognizing it has its own state of being and trying to understand that state on its own terms. The ice doesn't think, but it does exist in a state of quantum stress, and that state can be influenced by applied thermodynamics. I just listened to what it was telling me through its molecular behavior. And it told you it wanted to be a bridge. It told me it wanted stability. I suggested a bridge. We collaborated. She smiled. That's the thing about humans, Commander. We're really good at collaboration, even with things that aren't alive in the traditional sense. We've been working with fire, water, earth, and air for our entire evolutionary history. This is just an extension of that. Exotic matter is just another element that needs understanding. Commander Kael'thas thought about that for a long moment. Cadet Baker, you've passed your final trial. Congratulations. You're now qualified for assignment to the Galactic Defense Force. Awesome. When do I start? After you complete your remaining coursework, which includes... He checked his data pad. Advanced Stellar Engineering next semester. Oh, that'll be fun. I've been reading ahead. Unstable star cores seem really interesting. They're kind of like the frozen river ice, just in reverse. Super excited matter that needs calming instead of excited matter that needs purpose. I bet if you... Cadet. Kael'thas held up a hand. Please don't theorize about negotiating with stars until you're actually in the class. I need to warn your instructor first. Warn? Why would you need to? Oh. Because of the bridge thing. She laughed. Commander, I promise I'm not going to do anything weird with stars. Probably. I mean, unless they're in an uncomfortable state and need help. But that's just being nice, right? Kael'thas watched her walk away, still chuckling to herself, and activated his communicator. This is Commander Kael'thas. I need to speak with Professor Vexia in the Stellar Engineering Department. Priority urgent. Topic: incoming human student. Yes, the one from the frozen river. No, I'm not joking. Yes, you should probably request backup instructors, and a physics waiver, and... He paused. Possibly a prayer to the ancient ones. She's already theorizing about calming unstable star cores through thermal negotiation. The response was a long string of crystalline chiming sounds that his translator rendered as creative profanity. The emergency session of the Galactic Defense Council lasted 14 hours. Holographic representations of the frozen river bridge were examined from every angle. Catherine's methodology was debated by experts across 7 scientific disciplines. Ancient texts on human behavior were retrieved from archives and analyzed for precedent. Council Elder Dirax, who had served for 6 centuries and seen the rise and fall of civilizations, finally spoke. The humans don't break physics. They convince it to work differently. That's somehow more terrifying than if they simply ignored physical law. Because if physics can be convinced, persuaded, negotiated with, then there are no true limitations, only problems awaiting the right conversation. She treated exotic matter like a colleague, noted Counselor Talana. She identified its quantum distress and offered it purpose. The matter responded. This implies matter itself has some form of... preference, response capability. The philosophical implications are staggering. The military implications are more immediate, Admiral R. Hill interjected. If humans can restructure hostile environments through applied empathy and thermodynamics, what else can they do? Negotiate with black holes? Convince neutron stars to stabilize? Persuade antimatter to coexist peacefully with matter? We don't know, Council Elder Dirac admitted. And that's what concerns me. The humans themselves don't seem to know the limits of their capabilities. This cadet genuinely didn't understand why we were amazed. To her, understanding the quantum emotional state of exotic matter and helping it find purpose was Tuesday. We need to revise the entire human integration protocol, Counselor Talana said firmly. They're not just another species. They're a species that fundamentally reframes physical reality through combination of technical knowledge and what they call being nice. We've been testing them with trials designed for species that accept limitations. Humans don't accept limitations. They view limitations as negotiation starting points. The vote was unanimous. New protocols would be established. Human-specific training that accounted for their unique cognitive approach. Trials that tested not their ability to overcome impossible odds, but their judgment in deciding which impossible odds should be overcome and which should be left alone. Because if a human could convince exotic matter to become a bridge, what would happen when they encountered something that shouldn't be convinced, something that was hostile for good reason? That was a question for another day. For now, they had a bridge. A permanent, stable, impossible bridge across the proving ground of the worthy dead. Built by a human who thought she was just being helpful. The Academy Cartography Department updated their maps. The new notation read, Frozen River Crossing, Stable Bridge, Human Built. Approach with philosophical flexibility. Catherine Baker sat in her dormitory that evening, sending a message to her family back on Earth. Hi, Mom and Dad. Passed my final trial today. Built a bridge over this really cold river. They seemed super surprised about it. I guess nobody else had tried the thermal gradient approach before. Anyway, stellar engineering next semester. Professor says we'll be studying unstable star cores. Sounds fun. The stars are probably lonely out there, burning away their mass with nobody to talk to. Maybe I can help with that. Love you. Catherine. She hit send and pulled up her textbook for next semester. Advanced Stellar Mechanics. Understanding Core Collapse Dynamics. The introduction talked about inevitability, about how certain stellar states led inexorably to supernovae or black hole formation, about the immutable laws governing stellar death. Catherine made a note in the margin. Try thermal gradient conversations? Across campus, Professor Vexia received Commander Cale Thas's warning message and immediately filed requests for 3 backup instructors, complete overhaul of her safety protocols, and a philosophical consultant. Then she looked out her window toward the frozen river, where a bridge glowed softly in the darkness. Made of ice that couldn't exist. Built by a human who thought she was just being nice. Professor Vexia pulled up Catherine Baker's file. Engineering track. Perfect grades. Hobbies included talking to machines and helping things work better. The professor added one more request to her filing. Prayers to the ancient ones. Multiple denominations. We're going to need them. But she smiled as she typed it. Because if humanity could teach exotic matter to be a bridge, maybe they could teach the galaxy something too. Maybe limitations were just things nobody had convinced otherwise. Yet, the bridge hummed softly through the night, resonating at a frequency that matched human vocal ranges, holding steady against the quantum chaos around it, proving that sometimes the most impossible thing wasn't surviving the trial. It was changing what impossible meant. And somewhere in the Academy archives, a new addendum was being added to cadet orientation materials. If assigned a human partner during trials, remember, your impossible is their sounds like Tuesday. Their empathy extends to matter itself. Their problem-solving includes asking the universe nicely to reconsider its position. Plan accordingly. Bring extra hot chocolate. They'll probably share. The frozen river flowed on. But now it flowed beneath a bridge. Its exotic matter finally given purpose, finally content in its new structural existence. No cadet had survived the frozen river, until one did. And she'd brought fire.